Good afternoon. Not too long ago, I was asked to make a little video showing how I was able to change this light colored dress into something a little darker. You need to follow in order to do this. It's pretty straightforward. It's basically 3 steps, and it's fairly easy. But the thing you have to keep in mind is that when you change the color of a fabric or something, it's never gonna look 100% natural. It can be close, but there's always gonna be a little something. It's will never be a natural look and feel as if the fabric was in the right color to begin with. So in this case, I'm using an image from one of my clients, Lisa, who allowed me to use this to go forward with my explanation. So in this case, we had the maid of honor's dress, once photographed, looked way too light, and they wanted to have a bigger difference between her dress color and the bride's. So for her favorite photos, we were asked to change the color to something that was matching the forest green of the bridal party. So it's pretty close, but again, we can see the texture through the color. We kept grain, we kept the movement, but we can see that it's not the same material. However, uh, if you look far away and you're just looking at images, you know, if you're not looking for it, you may not notice it. Sorry. So, in order to do this, I'm gonna delete this. Um, you need to make your selection first. Make sure that you have the area you want to work properly selected. Uh, for the sake of not making this video longer, I'm just gonna use the selection I already have. So just select the area you want, making sure you have all of the zones and that it's not bleeding anywhere. Once you have your selection, we will work in a folder. The reason why we want to work in a folder, and please, I apologize for the snoring. My pug, my assistant, is sleeping beside me. So the reason why we want to work in a folder is that every adjustment that we do uh, will already be masked instead of working layer by layer and redoing a selection every time. So working with a folder will allow us to do the selection and the masking once, and then every adjustments that we will be doing will already be in the right spot. So once your selection is done, we will click on the folder icon to create a folder, and then we will add a mask on it. The selection I want, and now we will work inside the folder only. We'll create a new layer, an empty layer, and we will go use the eyedropper tool and select the color we want. We don't want to go too light, but we don't want to go in the very shaded area either. So we'll try going to a mid-range green, this, and then we'll fill our layer. Right now it doesn't look nice at all because it's just a plain color. We don't see anything through it. In order to bring some depth, we need to change our blending mode. So from normal, we will move it to multiply. And now we can see we have our texture, we have our layers, we can see through the color. It's nicely applied, but it's still a little plain. most of it is there, but we want to add more details into the shadows, and we want to add more highlights. So to do this, we're going to add two things. You can work with either level layers, to bring back your shadows, or curves. So here, let's use a level adjustment. And right now we're just looking at darkening our shadow area. So don't worry about areas that shouldn't be darkened. All we want to do is bring details in the darks. So we will darken. I like how this is getting darker. Tiny bit of light, a little more mid-range here. I have a little delay. My Photoshop is not cooperating very much at the moment. Okay, so here I have a lot of the darkness that I want to see in my shadows, so I'm going to keep this. Now what we're going to do, we're going to double click on our layer, and we're going to work with our blend diff mode. So what we want to do, we want the adjustment we just did, we want it applied on the color layer. So we want to work on the underlying layer. So we want to work our shadows. So I'm going to move my little cursor here, and by keeping an eye on what's happening on my color, okay, so I see, okay, this will be nicely applied. However, I don't know if you can see it's not feathered at all. The transition is way too harsh. So in order to bring a nice feathered transition, we'll click Alt and Alter Option, and we will click in the middle of the little triangle to separate it, and then we will feather it so that the transition looks a little better. Okay, so now we have this applied on our shadows. Now what we want to do, we want to go and work on our highlights. So we'll do the same thing. This time we'll go use a curves adjustment, and we will bring some highlights to it. And we will do the same thing. Double click, work on the underlying layer. We want to target only our areas that will have natural highlights to bring some shine back on the fabric. And when we're okay with this, Alter Option, click on the middle of the triangle, and then we will feather it. And when we're satisfied with the way it's feathered, then we will accept this transition. And there we go. We have a nice transitions in our highlights. We have nice transition in our shadows. The last thing we want to do to make sure everything is nice and cohesive is, because we have added a plain color, the color itself does not match the grain of the image. It will match the texture of the material, but it will not match the texture, the grain, the digital grain of the image. So you want to zoom in so that you can see the grain on a darker area of your image. And we're going to go to Filter, Noise, Add Noise. And we're going to go and try and find a noise, a digital noise that is closer, is pretty close to what we have here. So I think it was fine at 1, so we'll bring it back to 1. We'll apply it. And I find it still a little too sharp. We'll add just a small Gaussian blur on top of it, just to smooth it out a little bit so that it has about that same soft, grainy texture. I think 4 is good. Here we go. So now everything matches together. So we changed the color, we matched the grain, we brought back shadows and shine to the fabric. Everything is nice and cohesive. I would be the same technique if you wanted to change the color for red or even black. But you have to be careful if you decide to go with a very dark color. You may need to play a little more with your adjustments to make sure that you see your shadows and highlights through. It's a little more difficult to bring that texture back. So don't go for a full-on dark black when you do your adjustment color. Go for more charcoal gray or lighter gray and just adjust it as you go until you get the black color that you would need. But technically it's the exact same technique. Choose your color, change your blending mode to multiply, and then fix your shadows and highlights, bring them back using the blend if method. So here it is. It's pretty simple. It usually takes longer to make a proper selection than it takes to change the actual color. But I hope this was helpful, and if you have any question, as usual, don't hesitate to ask me. Bye.